Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I have paper. Are you ready? Well, Marek made me a wonderful entrance. You saw, because you saw wonderful things. Some of the best in the world. Don't have illusions. Because he picked some of the greatest artists and inventors who inspire us all. And they were not born out of nothing. There are some creators here in this room who inspired generations, like Ana Alvarado, the company El Periférico de Objetos, years ago, and others and others. So, what is directing? Who is the director? You saw how difficult it is to make a definition of the puppet. What is the puppet? What do we call puppet? Of course, even if it is interesting that there is not only one answer and that we can make our choice. But if we make the choices for what? How do you use it? How do we treat it? What are we going to say through it? So I would like to tell you a few words I found in books. I didn't invent them. Trying to tell you just with big jumps the history of directing. Directing in theater, not in puppet theater. My opinion is that directing is directing. Puppet theater director is a director. And many of the tools, the main tools, may be the same. It depends what kind of theater he will choose to do. But of course, if you use puppets or objects or masks and combinations with a body, anything you choose to animate and express yourself through an object, you have to know puppetry. You have to know puppetry as an extra. You have to discover in what consists its power, its charm, what does make it, why is it so powerful, why does it move us, why when we make accomplished moments, the reality of the theater moment becomes stronger, more real than reality, right? So I want to go through my very brief history. We learn in school that directing was invented by the Duke of Saxony-Meiningen in the 19th century. But in 1550, Leone de Somi, Italian, most remembered for having written the first ever treatise on the art of stage direction, defines a precise... Should I? Okay, you are not doing this on purpose. Because I tortured him before. He defined the art of stage, he tried to define the methodology of play production from the selection of a text through its performance. The work was entitled Four Dialogues on Scenic Representations. The actor, and that was in 1600s, in the middle. The actor must follow the director's indications. Actor's play has to show truthfulness, costumes, historical fidelity, So lighting first suggestions of psychological atmosphere. This was again in the 16th century. In the 18th century, I make a big jump. The director becomes an autocrat. The priority of the show gets the acting gets the priority. It passes before the text. And of course, there are organized rehearsals, organized groups of actors, and the director has a creative contribution, is not only a sophisticated organizer. And then, afterwards, it is the Duke of Saxony-Meiningen, considered to have established the function and the profession of director and theater becoming the director's theater. And then, of course, the 20th century, you know, all of you know, certainly Konstantin Stanislavski, the visionaries of theatrical art and staging, Appia, Craig, Meyerhold, Copeau, a French director who invented the open stage and eliminated the proscenium and wanted theater to reach towards the audience, a stage we very often use today. And all these directors mentioned as an important thing that theater has to be researched, that the director has to do research. While at the same time, Stanislavski was saying that you shouldn't start. So, what are we doing today? There are so many different creative processes, and there are so many different choices. The theater has a very large diversity. What is the director doing? What is the director? In my opinion, the director is a poet and an architect. So we cannot form poets. They are or not. We can give the tools of the directors. When I studied at the School of Prague, I studied puppet theater. I shouldn't say when, but I will say it was in the 70s, and it was in the 70s, and it was at Damu in Prague. Very good school at that time. It was a very good school. It was a very serious school, and all the directing I studied, it was how to say, structured as the study of theater directing. Puppetry came on top. How to say, theater history, theater aesthetics, philosophy, history of fine arts, history of music, improvisation, expressive movement for directors. All this came on top. And I have to say that as students, like most of the students are in all generations, of course, we wanted the training to be different. We wanted also things we didn't get in school. So, in fact, when I finished school and I started to work in Bucharest in Țăndărică Puppet Theater, I created my own laboratory, and I started to work off repertoire with the colleagues of my own generation, and through the research we did together, I found out and I formed myself as a director. I belong to the generation which broke the Castellet, the puppet theater booth, the closed stage, and who brought the actor next to the puppet, and which in fact changed the whole theater, brought up a lot of new possibilities and a lot of problems. And this was a big, big revolution. Many puppeteers, the public cited, but many, it brought also grown-up people to the theater, but many puppeteers reproached it because puppet theater was not theater anymore. I'm saying that to tell you that the fact that the puppeteer became a live interpreter without a recording, which was used in many places for different reasons, and he was on open stage, changed his status. He had to know how to act, he had to know how to move, he has to be a puppeteer. Through the research, we started to invent new puppets, new kind of puppets, and theater with objects. So the puppeteer had to be capable of contributing creatively in this process, and also be capable to have more skills than he had before. I'm telling you that to tell you that in a way, I think that the director determined and determines the changes in education through his needs, through the needs he has in order to be able to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. Then now I feel that I took it all over the field, and I will look again. In my notes. So in my generation, we were inspired very much by directors from Actors Theatre, Peter Brook, The Empty Space, a theater which goes to the essence, the relation between the puppet and the puppeteer, doing research in the relation between the puppet and the puppeteer, which opened so many more possibilities because it was a relation, and it is today a relation which can have a significance, which can have a meaning, or be like in Japanese theater, a convention. But the most powerful shows are the shows in which the director, the actor, finds a significant relation between the puppet and the puppeteer. And you saw in Marek's presentations, for example, Neville Tranter with a show about Hitler. Neville Tranter has this very special talent that he always finds a function, a role which fits perfectly to his presence on stage. And he can be the performer. He plays, in fact, 3 parts. He is the character, he is as an actor. In the little pieces you saw, the servant, the military servant of Hitler, the valet, the ordonnance. He plays the role of the character expressed through the puppet. And at the same time, he's the manipulator. And he does that and keeps this relation, how to say, makes this relation evolve in his contact and manipulation of all the characters in the play. I mention that because it's a very important thing and very, very difficult to reach at this level, to find, to invent such a perfectly playing function of the actor on stage and find the role he could have. But my generation was, I think, marked very much by, to show you that we don't come from nowhere, by Yves Joly, French puppeteer, who is, I believe, the first one who used hands as characters and objects as character, who was a performer, a designer, a painter, a puppeteer, and a poet. And of course, he directed his own shows and found how to construct them through work and through performing them and through seeing the reaction of the public. And also because he had the knowledge of composition, being a painter, because even a painting has a dynamic and a rhythm, even though in a different way than theater has. And then it was Henk Boerwinkle with his metaphysical small poems with puppets, which he did in Metamorphoses without words, incredibly touching, being really dreamlike, existential reveries, I would call them. And then Philippe Gentil, who is maybe more known here, who started in fact as a puppeteer with cabaret numbers. Very well done, but they were cabaret numbers with choreography and music. It was entertainment. And then passed through a completely different kind of theater, a very poetic kind of theater, very marked by Tadeusz Kantor and by the psychoanalysis of Freud, and developed, worked with dancers, puppeteers, dancers, and developed another kind of relation between the puppet and the puppeteer. And is one of the first ones which used materials, brute materials, making spaces out of paper, of, how to say, wrapping paper, and transforming it in different ways and using the vibration, the color, the fluidity or not, the qualities of the material. And who came, in fact, didn't have theater studies, but came from design. And his shows traveled all over the world, and he gave workshops all over the world. And I think he marked a lot of theater artists. And then Joseph Krofta, the great Czech director, who was the strongest and one of the first ones, maybe the first one, who gave a meaning to the relation between the puppet and the puppeteer. Because there were already directors older than him who used it, but used it because they were tired of the closed space. So the puppeteers played in view and were in kind of carrying around, interpreting beautiful puppets, interesting design, but they were part of the picture, but they were still manipulators. Joseph Krofta had, with his philosophical thinking and his incredible playfulness and love for people and for children, he created shows which nourished many artists, of course the public, but nourished, marked, influenced many artists. And I make again a big jump, and I will mention Ilka Schönbein, whom you may have seen and whom Marek showed, whose theater is incredibly powerful. She is a very original artist who puts all her inside on stage. She dives into the deepest waters of human existence that some people can't even take it, because she talks about human suffering. She talks about loneliness. She talks about love and betrayal, about poverty, about, she tries, I will use a cliche, but it's very true, she's doing it. She tries to give voice to people who don't have a voice and to tell things we don't express loud. And this is a very strong potential theater has, and a very strong potential of puppet theater. With puppets, whatever kind they are, you can express things beyond what an actor can express. Because a puppet, when it really, through the actor, of course, really transforms, transmits an emotion, and it makes you believe, it makes you forget it's just an object. It touches, it makes you touch somewhere another spiritual level, or express it otherwise better than me, if you find how. This is why I'm doing puppet theater, so just because of that. So me personally, as a director, I did a lot of research in my work through my shows, and explored the relation between the puppet and the puppeteer. Otherwise, I used all kind of puppets, classic, traditional, and invented, and not objects. For objects and for any kind of theater, you have to have a special talent, special sensitivity to be attracted to it. So you know, you see how artists nourish each other, and of course we are curious, interested to use the new media, because it is the same how people passed from the candle light to the electricity, which opened more possibilities, and then to the slide projector, and to the overhead projector, and so on and so forth. And now it's the digital world. The problem is, how do you use them, and how do we motivate them? How do we justify them, when in fact we know that a great actor or a great puppeteer can tell the most powerful story without using anything else but himself and a puppeteer, himself and a puppet, or something we call today a puppet. So what is the director doing? How is he making his choices? In the name of what? You can start from an idea, or you can start and search the form, or you can start from a material, from an object, from something else which attracts you from a reason maybe you don't even know why, and explore it, and explore its theatricality, and get the inspiration this way, but you always have to have inside yourself something important you want to say, something you already know from the beginning, or something you have inside yourself, and it will wake up in your research with objects, with materials, with something attracting you for its possibilities of theatricality. So is puppet theater a special category of, is directing in puppet theater a special category of directing? I would say yes and no, but this is my provocation, because my role today is to provoke you. So this is why I am allowing myself to share with you my thoughts, but behind these thoughts there is really my purpose to provoke you. What is directing, and if we teach today directing? Because it is architecture. Poets invent a structure or follow a structure already given. We invent structures. Why? Because we want to find the best ways to communicate to the public, to keep the public interested, to charm him, or charm it. So this is, and we use new means, new media, because otherwise we get bored ourselves, because we start to repeat ourselves, and we don't want that. And also because we want to create surprises, to surprise the theater. I read recently a short book of interviews talking to Robert Lapage, the Canadian director. Have you heard of him? It is, well, you, of course you did. It is a very interesting Canadian director who has a very special way of working, who started doing theater. He studied as an actor in the city of Quebec. He makes today incredibly, he makes today shows who are, Carmen, you will talk about it, who are using imagery, fascinating imagery, which is highly technical, technical. Of course, he has the means, because the directors are very dependent on the means, on the material means they have. So I'm announced that I have 1 minute. So what are we teaching? Is it necessary to teach directing? I tell you that I think I do. I think it's very necessary. Some artists don't need it. Some drivers learn without having a teachers too. There are skills and skills, but I think that yes, if we teach theater, we need to teach directing, because these schools and programs have to give craft, because theater is inspiration and also craftsmanship. And now, in my last minute, I would like to tell you the questions. I hope that we will not have many academic speeches, and I hope that we will have really the courage to exchange thoughts about what we teach today, how we prepare the people who are doing theater tonight, tomorrow. What tools do we give them? How do we guide them? For what kind of world? for what kind of theater? What I'm searching to give you the names of the director. I have to finish with that. The names of the director was called along the ages. It was called in many ways, but I chose the ones which were easier for me to translate in English. So it was named Gardener of Spirits, Doctor of Feelings and Sensations, Cobbler of Situations, King of the Theater and Servant of the Stage, Touchstone of the Public, Theater Alchemist. So my hope for this meeting is really that we will share thoughts and talk about the questioning we have when we prepare a course. How do we do it? What is our ambition? Whom do we want to teach? For what? What do we think it's important? How in this abundance of tools, of possibilities, and this obsession with inventiveness, we do the search for meaning, which is essential in theater, even though you can make theater as entertainment also, because theater is also a celebration. But it has all these dimensions. So this is my hope, that we will discuss all of that, all these questions, and many more. And thank you very much.